The bar had no name that anyone remembered. People just called it the Rust Bucket, and that was close enough to the truth. It sat on the lower levels of Nexus Station, where the lights flickered and the air recyclers worked only half the time. It was the kind of place where people came to disappear for a while. Laura Grant sat alone at a corner table with her back to the wall. She nursed a drink that tasted like engine fuel mixed with regret. Her clothes were worn and stained with cargo grease. Her hair was pulled back in a messy knot. Her hands were rough with calluses. To anyone who looked at her, she was just another burned-out cargo hauler waiting for her next job. She had been waiting for 11 months now. The mission had seemed simple at first. Find the source of weapons flowing to terrorist cells that were attacking human colonies, track the shipments, identify the leaders, report back to command, but nothing was ever simple on Nexus Station. The weapons trail led to the Empire, and they did not like humans asking questions. So Laura had become someone else. She had created a new identity, a new history, a new life. She hauled cargo during the day and listened to conversations at night. She made friends with smugglers and criminals. She learned their secrets one drink at a time. Danny Cole stood behind the bar, cleaning glasses that would never truly be clean. He was a big man with kind eyes and tattoos on his arms that marked him as a former Marine. He was one of her contacts on the station, though he did not know her true role. To him, she was just Laura, a hauler who was down on her luck and needed a friend. He caught her eye and gave her a small nod. It meant nothing had changed since yesterday. No new information, no new leads, just another quiet night in a bar full of dangerous people. The door opened and the quiet ended. 6 soldiers walked in like they owned the place. In a way, they did. The Empire was one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy, and their soldiers were known for their strength and their cruelty. They stood 8 feet tall with scales that could stop a blade and claws that could tear through metal. Their eyes were yellow and cold, like a predator watching prey. Their leader was the biggest of them all. His name was Ev, and he had been celebrating his promotion at 3 other bars before this one. His movements were loose and sloppy from too much drink, but his eyes were still sharp. He scanned the room like he was looking for something to break. The other patrons kept their heads down. A group of smugglers in the corner suddenly became very interested in their drinks. 2 mercenaries near the door found reasons to leave. Even the criminals of Nexus Station knew better than to challenge drunk soldiers. Laura watched them from the corner of her eye. She kept her body language small and afraid, the way a normal human would react. She had spent 11 months learning to be invisible. She was not about to throw that away for a bar fight. Ev and his soldiers took over the center of the room. They pushed tables aside and demanded the best drinks. Danny served them without complaint, his face showing nothing but polite service. Laura knew he was probably thinking about the shotgun he kept under the bar, but he was smart enough not to reach for it. One of the soldiers grabbed a passing alien, a small creature with 4 arms and nervous eyes. He laughed as he shook it and asked if it knew any tricks. When the creature tried to run, the soldiers threw it between them like a ball. Its cries for help went unanswered. No one wanted to be next. Laura gripped her glass but did not move. Her mission was more important than one victim. She hated herself for thinking that way, but it was the truth. The information she had gathered could save thousands of lives. She could not risk it for one person. Finally, the soldiers grew bored with their game. They dropped the creature, which scrambled away on all 4s and disappeared through a back door. Ev laughed and drained his drink. His yellow eyes moved across the room, looking for new entertainment. They found Laura. He walked toward her table with slow, heavy steps. Each footfall shook the floor. His soldiers spread out behind him, blocking any escape. Not that Laura was planning to run. Running would attract attention. She just needed to be boring. Boring people got ignored. "Look at this," Ev said. His voice was deep and rough like stones grinding together. A little human all alone. Where is your pack, soft creature? Laura hunched her shoulders and looked down at the table. Just having a drink, she said quietly. I don't want any trouble. You don't want trouble. He repeated her words in a mocking tone. His soldiers laughed behind him. Humans never want trouble. That is because you are weak, prey animals playing at being people. He grabbed her arm and pulled her up from the seat. His claws dug into her skin hard enough to bruise. Laura let herself be lifted. She kept her face afraid, her body limp, her breathing fast. Everything about her said victim. You should look at me when I speak to you, Eth growled. Show me the fear in your eyes. I want to see it. Laura looked up at him. She made her eyes wide and wet like she was about to cry. Please, she whispered, please let me go. I haven't done anything. Eth smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. That is the problem with your species. You never do anything. You just exist, taking up space, breathing our air. The galaxy would be better without you. His soldiers rumbled their agreement. Danny Cole's hand moved slowly toward the space under the bar, but he stopped himself. He knew he could not fight all 6 of them alone. Eth released Laura's arm and she stumbled backward. For a moment, she thought it was over. He had gotten his entertainment. He would move on to someone else. But then he saw something in her eyes, just for a second, just a flash. It was not fear. His expression changed. The drunken amusement disappeared, replaced by something harder and more dangerous. Wait, he said slowly. What was that? Laura shook her head quickly. Nothing, it was nothing, I'm just scared. No, he stepped closer. I know fear. I have seen it in 1,000 eyes. That was not fear. He leaned down until his face was inches from hers. What are you hiding, little human? He drew back his fist, claws extended, ready to strike. And in that moment, something cold and dangerous flashed in Laura's eyes again. The bar went completely silent. Every person in the room turned to watch. They had seen this scene play out before. A drunk soldier, an unlucky human, and blood on the floor. It was a common story on Nexus Station. It always ended the same way. Ed's fist came down like a hammer. Laura moved, not fast enough to seem superhuman, but just enough. She shifted her weight and turned her body. His claws passed through the air where her face had been a moment before. His own momentum carried him forward, and he stumbled slightly. To the watching crowd, it looked like an accident, a lucky stumble, a random twist of fate. Laura made her voice shake. Please, I didn't mean to, I just slipped. Please don't hurt me. Eth steadied himself. His yellow eyes narrowed. The stumble had been small, but he had felt something wrong about it. The way she had moved was not the clumsy dodge of a frightened civilian. There had been something controlled about it, something practiced. Again, he said quietly, do that again. He swung once more, faster this time. Laura dodged again, making it look like she was falling backward in fear. She crashed into a table and sent drinks flying. The noise gave her cover as she scrambled on the floor, playing the part of a terrified woman. Stay away from me, she cried. Someone help me, please. No one moved to help her. No one ever did. Eth was not smiling anymore. He was watching her with the cold focus of a predator that had spotted something strange about its prey. His soldiers moved closer, forming a loose circle around them. Get up, he ordered. Laura stood slowly, keeping her head down. Every muscle in her body was ready to move, but she forced herself to look small and weak. Her cover had survived 11 months of close contact with criminals and killers. It could survive a drunk soldier. You move well for a cargo hauler, Eth said, too well. I used to dance, Laura said quickly, back on Earth before I had to work. It was a good lie. It could explain her body control and balance, but Eth did not look convinced. He reached out and grabbed her wrist, twisting it to force her to her knees. The pain was real and Laura did not have to fake her wince. I think you are lying to me, little human. He twisted harder. I think there is more to you than you pretend. Laura's mind was racing. She had played this game 100 times before. She had been captured, tortured, and interrogated by enemies far more skilled than this drunk soldier. She could handle this. But then Eth reached for his belt and pulled out a blade. It was a combat knife with a curved edge designed for cutting through armor. It was also completely illegal on Nexus Station. Carrying weapons in public spaces was one of the few rules that everyone followed, because breaking it meant being banned from the station forever. Eth did not seem to care. "Let me see what is under that skin," he said softly. "Let me see if you bleed like other humans." Danny Cole's hand moved under the bar. Several patrons started moving toward the exits. The situation had changed from bullying to something much darker. Laura looked at the knife. She looked at Eth's eyes. She saw no hesitation there, no doubt. He was going to cut her and he was going to enjoy it. 11 months of work, hundreds of hours building her cover, thousands of lives depending on the information she had gathered. She thought about all of it in the space between heartbeats. Then she stopped thinking. Eth brought the blade down toward her face. Laura caught his wrist with her free hand. She twisted, using his own strength against him. The knife flew out of his grip and clattered across the floor. Before he could react, she had broken his arm at the elbow. The sound of bone snapping was very loud in the quiet room. Eth screamed. Laura swept his legs out from under him and he crashed to the ground. She put her boot on his throat and pressed down just hard enough to make breathing difficult. The whole thing had taken 3 seconds. The bar was frozen. Every eye was on her. Laura stood over the fallen soldier with no expression on her face. The frightened cargo hauler was gone. In her place was someone else entirely. The other soldiers reached for weapons they were not supposed to have. Laura's eyes moved across them without fear. "Tell your friends to put their weapons down," she said. Her voice was calm and cold. "Now." Eth choked out a laugh despite the boot on his throat. "Kill her," he gasped. "Kill the human." His soldiers hesitated. They were drunk and angry, but they were also trained warriors. They recognized the way Laura held herself, the way she had dismantled their leader without effort. This was not a random cargo hauler who had gotten lucky. One of the soldiers, older than the others with scars on his scales, stepped forward slowly. His weapon was still in his hand but pointed at the floor. "That fighting style," he said, "I have seen it before, many years ago during the border wars." His voice was quiet. "That is commando training, human special forces." The word spread through the bar in whispers. Commando, special forces. The humans had soldiers who were trained to fight in ways that made them dangerous even to. Stories about them were told across the galaxy, usually as warnings. Laura did not deny it. There was no point now. Danny Cole moved his hand away from the shotgun under the bar. His eyes were wide with surprise. He had known Laura for months. He had thought she was just a down-on-her-luck hauler who needed a friend. He had never suspected. "Station security is on the way," he said carefully. "I triggered the silent alarm." Laura nodded without looking at him. "Good." Eth was still struggling beneath her boot. "You have made a mistake, human. Do you know who I am? Do you know who I serve? You will suffer for this." "I know exactly who you serve," Laura said quietly. "I have known for 11 months." The door burst open and station security forces poured in with weapons raised. Behind them came a tall figure in expensive robes. His scales were a deeper color than the soldiers, marking him as highborn. His eyes were ancient and cunning. Station Chieftain had arrived. And behind him, following like a shadow, was Ambassador of the Empire. Laura looked at the Ambassador. The Ambassador looked at Laura, and something passed between them that made everyone in the room very afraid. "Well," said softly, "this is unexpected." Bar became a frozen picture of tension. Station security stood with weapons raised but uncertain. The soldiers gripped their illegal weapons. Danny Cole watched from behind the bar with his hand ready to grab his shotgun, and in the middle of it all, Laura Grant stood with her boot on Ed's throat. Ambassador stepped forward. He moved slowly, with the confidence of someone who had never known fear. His robes whispered across the floor as he walked. His yellow eyes never left Laura's face. "Remove your foot from my soldier," he said. His voice was soft but carried the weight of absolute authority. Laura did not move. "Your soldier attacked an unarmed civilian with an illegal weapon. I defended myself." "You broke his arm." "He tried to cut my face." Smiled, but there was no warmth in it. The word of a soldier against the word of a human hauler. I wonder which one the station will believe. Station Chieftain stepped between them. He was a thin alien with gray skin and too many eyes, all of them currently showing nervousness. Nexus Station survived because it stayed neutral in galactic conflicts. A fight between humans and could destroy everything. "Perhaps we should discuss this calmly," and said. "There is no need for violence." "There is always a need for violence," Eth gasped from the floor. "That is what humans never understand." Laura pressed her boot down slightly harder. Eth's words turned into choking sounds. She kept her eyes on. "Your soldier has diplomatic immunity," she said. It was not a question. That is why he carried an illegal weapon. That is why he attacked without fear of punishment. Smile widened. "Very perceptive. Yes, all of my people enjoy the protection of the Empire. They cannot be arrested or detained by station security. Any attempt to harm them would be considered an act of war." Laura felt the weight of those words. She could not hold Eth forever. If she released him, he would attack again. If she hurt him further, she would give them an excuse for something much worse. Her hand moved casually to her belt. Hidden there under her worn clothing was a small device. She pressed it 3 times in a specific pattern. Somewhere nearby, a signal was received. Commander Sam sat aboard a small ship hidden in the shadow of a cargo freighter. He was a lean man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. He had been running black operations for 30 years. Laura was his best operative. His console lit up with her emergency beacon. He stared at it for a long moment. "Commander," his second officer looked at him with concern. "That is Agent Grant's signal. She is requesting extraction." Already knew what that meant. 11 months of work destroyed. The entire intelligence operation exposed. They would have to start over from nothing. But Laura was alive. That was what mattered. "Prepare the extraction team," he ordered. "Full combat gear. We go in 3 minutes." Back in the bar, the standoff continued. Had stopped smiling. He was studying Laura with new interest. "You are not a cargo hauler," he said. "I suspected that the moment I saw you standing over Eth. No civilian fights like that. I told you I used to dance." "Please," waved his hand dismissively. "Do not insult my intelligence. I have been tracking human special forces operations for 20 years. I know their techniques, their methods, their faces." His eyes narrowed. "I know you, I think, not your name but your work. You are the one they call the Ghost, the operative who destroys our operations without ever being seen." Laura kept her face blank, but her heart was beating faster. If knew who she was, then her danger had increased 100 times. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Of course not." Turned to Station Chieftain. "This woman is a human intelligence operative. She has been conducting illegal espionage on Nexus Station. I demand she be handed over to custody immediately." And looked like he wanted to be anywhere else in the galaxy. "Ambassador, I cannot simply hand over a station resident without evidence." "I am giving you evidence, my word." "With respect, that is not how station law works." His eyes flashed with anger. "Then perhaps station law needs to change." Laura saw her opportunity. "Ambassador, you say I am a spy, but I say your soldier attacked me with an illegal weapon. Let us both present our evidence and let the station decide." There is no evidence of any weapon. There is. Laura pointed to the floor where the knife had fallen. That blade, that is Ed's knife. I am certain the security recordings will show him pulling it. Glanced at the knife. Then he looked at Station Chiefin. Something passed between them that Laura did not like. Unfortunately, and said slowly, the security recordings in this section of the station have been experiencing technical difficulties. Laura understood and was afraid. He had probably been taking bribes from them for years. He was not going to stand against them now. That is convenient, she said flatly. Very, agreed. So we are left with your word against ours, and I think you will find that the word of an ambassador carries more weight than the word of a human drifter. He gestured to his soldiers. Take her into custody, gently if possible. I have questions for her. The soldiers moved forward. Laura had to make a decision quickly. She could fight, but she was badly outnumbered. She could run, but they would catch her before she reached the door. She could surrender, but that would mean torture and death. Instead, she chose something else. Wait, she said loudly. Before you take me, there is something everyone in this room should know. Raised a hand, his soldiers stopped. What game are you playing now? No game, just truth. Laura looked around the bar at the watching faces. Smugglers, criminals, outcasts, people who had come to Nexus Station because they had nowhere else to go. You all know about the attacks on human colonies, she said. The bombings, the massacres, thousands of innocent people killed by terrorists who seemed to come from nowhere. No one spoke, but she saw recognition in their eyes. Those terrorists got their weapons from somewhere, military-grade equipment. She pointed at. He knows where. He has been protecting the smugglers who supply them. He has been helping to murder human children. Laughed, but it sounded forced. This is ridiculous. Desperate lies from a desperate spy. Is it? Laura smiled coldly. Then why did you send Eth to celebrate at 4 different bars tonight? Why did you make sure he caused trouble at each one? You were testing the security responses. You were mapping the patrol patterns, because you have a shipment coming through tomorrow and you needed to know where the gaps were. The bar was dead silent. Smile had disappeared entirely. That is enough, he said. His voice was hard now, no longer pretending to be pleasant. Kill her. His soldiers raised their weapons. And the ceiling exploded. Debris rained down as armored figures dropped into the bar. They moved with perfect coordination, weapons firing before their boots touched the ground. The soldiers barely had time to turn before they were cut down. Commander Sam landed in front of Laura. His armor was black and covered with dust. His rifle was still smoking. Agent Grant, he said, I believe you requested extraction. Firefight was over in seconds. Commander and his team of 6 operatives had trained for exactly this kind of situation. Close quarters, multiple enemies, one friendly to protect. They executed their mission with brutal efficiency. 4 soldiers lay on the ground, unconscious or worse. The other 2 had surrendered the moment they saw the black armor of the Galactic Commandos. Everyone in the galaxy knew what that armor meant. Fighting against it was suicide. Laura stepped off Ed's throat. The soldier gasped for air and rolled onto his side, clutching his broken arm. He was no longer a threat. Ambassador had not moved during the entire assault. He stood perfectly still with his hands clasped in front of him, watching the carnage with cold eyes. If he was afraid, he did not show it. Commander, he said calmly, I should have known you would be nearby. You never send your ghost into the field without backup. Kept his rifle trained on the ambassador. I should thank you, actually. We have been trying to get evidence against your smuggling operation for months. Laura's cover let her get close, but we could never find the proof we needed. He smiled without warmth. Until tonight. I have no idea what you're talking about. Really? Gestured to one of his operatives. Show him. The operative pulled out and projected a holographic image into the air. It showed a cargo ship with markings. Text scrolled beside it, listing weapons, quantities, destinations. 3 hours ago, Galactic Council forces raided your shipment in the Outer Rim. They found enough weapons to arm a small army. They also found shipping manifests, payment records, and communication logs. Stepped closer to. Your name is on all of them. For the first time, something flickered in the ambassador's eyes. It might have been fear. That is impossible, he said quietly. Those records were encrypted, hidden in secure servers across 3 systems. They were, until our agents found them, nodded toward Laura. She spent 11 months gathering the access codes. You never suspected her because she looked like nobody, just another human drifter in a station full of criminals. Laura watched his face change as he understood. All those months of careful planning, all those layers of protection, all destroyed by one woman pretending to haul cargo. Your diplomatic immunity has been revoked, continued. The Galactic Council acted 2 hours ago. Right now, you are just another criminal. Station chief and had been watching from the corner, trying to make himself invisible. Now he stepped forward, suddenly eager to help. Commander, I had no idea about any of this, he said quickly. The ambassador pressured me, but I never participated in any smuggling operations. I'm happy to cooperate fully with your investigation. Looked at him with disgust. I am sure you are. We will discuss your cooperation later. Straightened his robes with careful dignity. You think you have won, he said to Laura. You think this ends the weapons trade. It does not. I am one ambassador. There are thousands more. The flow of weapons will continue. The attacks on your colonies will continue. You have changed nothing. Laura walked toward him. She stopped close enough to see the scales on his face, the lines around his ancient eyes. Maybe, she said, but tonight, because of what we found, 50,000 weapons will not reach their destination. Those weapons would have been used to attack a human colony called New Haven. Population, 300,000, mostly families, children. She leaned closer. 50,000 weapons, 300,000 lives. That is what we changed tonight. And we will keep changing it, one shipment at a time, one ambassador at a time, until there is nothing left to smuggle. Stared at her with pure hatred. You will regret this. The Empire does not forget. The Empire does not forgive. Every in the galaxy will know your face. You will never be safe again. I was never safe. Laura turned away from him. That is the difference between us. I never expected to be. Commander signaled to his team. Take the ambassador and his soldiers into custody. Secure the bar. I want statements from every witness. As his operatives moved to follow orders, Danny Cole emerged from behind the bar. He looked shaken but unhurt. He walked toward Laura with disbelief still showing on his face. 11 months, he said. You sat at my bar almost every night for 11 months. I thought I knew you. Laura met his eyes. You knew Laura Grant. She was real enough. But not the whole truth. No, not the whole truth. Danny was quiet for a moment. Then he shook his head and almost smiled. I served with Marines for 10 years. I thought I could spot military training from across a room, but you were invisible. That was the idea. What happens now, to you I mean, your cover is destroyed. Everyone saw what happened here tonight. Laura looked around the bar. The patrons who had watched the confrontation were being questioned by Commando operatives. They would be released soon, and they would talk. By tomorrow, every person on Nexus Station would know about the human woman who had defeated a soldier with her bare hands. I cannot go undercover again, she admitted. My face is known now. My identity is exposed. 11 months of building a new life and it is gone in one night. I am sorry. Don't be. She looked at that still showed the evidence they had gathered. It was worth it. Every sacrifice, every lonely night, every time I had to watch bad things happen and do nothing. It was worth it. Commander approached them. He had removed his helmet, revealing the tired face of a man who had been fighting too long. "Agent Grant, we need to extract you from the station before the military responds. Our ship is standing by." Laura nodded. "Give me 1 minute." She turned back to Danny. "You helped me more than you know. The information you passed along, the contacts you introduced me to, none of this would have happened without you." Danny shrugged. "I just served drinks and listened to people talk." "That is exactly what I needed." Laura paused. "The Commandos are always looking for people like you, people who can blend in, people who know how to listen. If you ever want more than a bar on a station full of criminals, there might be a place for you." Danny looked surprised. "You are offering me a job." "I am offering you a chance. What you do with it is up to you." Before he could respond, an alarm blared through the station. Red lights began flashing. The station's speaker system crackled to life. "Attention all residents. This is an emergency broadcast. Multiple warships have entered the system. All civilians should proceed to shelter areas immediately." Laura and exchanged looks. "They responded faster than we expected," said grimly. "We need to leave now." "What about the witnesses, the evidence?" "Already transmitted to Galactic Council headquarters. Whatever happens here, the truth is out." They moved toward the hole in the ceiling where the extraction team had entered. A ladder had been dropped down, leading to a maintenance shaft above. Laura was halfway up when Eth moved. The soldier had been lying on the ground, seemingly defeated, but he had been waiting, gathering his strength, and now, with one good arm and all his rage, he launched himself at her. Laura saw him coming. She released the ladder and dropped back to the floor. Eth's claws slashed through the air where she had been. She rolled, came up on her feet, and faced him. "You should have stayed down," she said. Eth bared his teeth. "I would rather die than let you escape." "That can be arranged." Charged with all the fury of a wounded predator. His broken arm hung useless at his side, but his good arm was still deadly. His claws could cut through steel. One solid hit would end the fight forever. Laura did not try to block. She moved. Years of training had taught her that strength was not everything. Speed and precision could defeat power if applied correctly. She stepped inside his reach, too close for his claws to find their target. Her elbow drove into his throat. Her knee found his stomach. He doubled over, gasping, and she grabbed his head and brought it down to meet her rising knee. The impact echoed through the bar. Eth staggered backward. Blood ran from his nose and mouth, but he was, and his species did not fall easily. He straightened and came at her again. This time, Laura did not wait for him. She attacked first, striking his broken arm. The pain made him scream and drop his guard. She hit him 3 more times in quick succession, each blow landing exactly where she intended. Eth fell to his knees. "Stay down," Laura said. Her voice was steady despite her racing heart. "It is over." But Eth had one last surprise. His good hand moved to his belt and pulled out a small blade, a backup weapon hidden under his armor. He slashed upward with desperate speed. Laura twisted away, but not fast enough. The blade caught her arm, cutting deep through skin and muscle. Blood sprayed across the floor. She stumbled backward, clutching the wound. Eth smiled through bloody teeth and rose to his feet. "Now we are equal," he said. "Both of us bleeding, both of us hurt. Let us see who dies first." Commander raised his rifle, but Laura shook her head. "No, this one is mine." She pulled off her jacket and wrapped it around her wounded arm, stopping the worst of the bleeding. The pain was intense, but she pushed it aside. Pain was just information. It could be processed later. Eth attacked again. He was slower now, weakened by his injuries. Laura was faster. She ducked under his swing, stepped behind him, and kicked the back of his knee. He went down hard. Before he could rise, she had her arm around his throat. She squeezed, cutting off blood flow to his brain. He struggled, but she held on. His movements became weaker. His eyes rolled back. He went limp. Laura held on for 3 more seconds to make sure. Then she released him and let him fall to the ground, unconscious but alive. "Secure him," she said to the nearest commando operative. "Make sure he cannot hurt anyone else." Commander helped her to her feet. His face showed concern when he saw the blood soaking through her makeshift bandage. "That wound needs treatment," he said. "It can wait." Laura looked around the bar one last time. Station chief and was being held by 2 operatives. Ambassador was in restraints, his ancient eyes burning with hatred. Danny Cole stood apart from everyone, still processing everything he had witnessed. "We need to go," said. "The warships will be in weapons range within the hour." They climbed through the hole in the ceiling and moved through the maintenance shafts. The station was in chaos around them. Alarms blared. People ran in every direction. News of the attack had spread quickly. 10 minutes later, they reached the hidden ship. It was small and fast, designed for extraction missions exactly like this one. Laura collapsed into a seat as the medic began working on her arm. "Deep cut," the medic said. "Missed the major arteries, you were lucky." "I don't believe in luck." Laura watched through the viewport as the station grew smaller. Only preparation. The ship accelerated away from Nexus Station, slipping through the chaos of fleeing vessels. Behind them, warships began demanding the station surrender the human operatives. They would find nothing. 3 weeks later, Laura stood in a grand chamber on the Galactic Councils. She was wearing a formal uniform for the first time in over a year. Her arm was still bandaged, but it was healing well. The council chamber was filled with representatives from 100 species. They had gathered to hear testimony about the weapons smuggling operation. The evidence was overwhelming, and the council had already voted to impose severe sanctions on the Empire. Laura told her story from the beginning. 11 months undercover, the slow gathering of evidence, the night in the bar that had changed everything. She spoke clearly and simply, letting the facts speak for themselves. When she finished, the chamber was silent. The council chairman, an ancient being with silver skin and wise eyes, spoke first. "Agent Grant, your service to the galaxy has been extraordinary. Because of your work, countless lives have been saved. The council offers you its deepest gratitude." Laura bowed her head slightly. "I was just doing my duty." "Your duty has cost you much. Your identity is known throughout the galaxy. You can never return to undercover work. What will you do now?" Laura thought about the question. She had given everything to this mission. Her anonymity, her safety, her chance at a normal life, all gone. But standing in that chamber, looking at the representatives of species she had helped protect, she did not feel regret. "I will find new ways to serve," she said. "There is always more work to be done." Walking out of the chamber afterward, she passed a group of diplomats. They stared at her with undisguised hatred. She met their eyes without flinching and kept walking. Commander was waiting for her outside. He looked tired but satisfied. "Nice speech," he said. "Very heroic." "I just told the truth." That is what made it heroic. He fell into step beside her as they walked through the ornate corridors. "So, what now? You cannot do field work anymore. Your face is too well known." Laura had been thinking about that for weeks. The answer had come to her slowly, taking shape in the quiet hours of recovery. "Then I suppose you will have to teach me to run my own team," she said. Raised an eyebrow. "You want to become a handler, send other agents into danger while you sit safely behind a desk." "I want to use what I learned. I spent 11 months watching how criminal networks operate, how intelligence flows, how to become invisible. That knowledge should not be wasted." Nodded slowly. "The training program takes 2 years. You would have to start from the beginning. Learn everything about mission planning, asset management, strategic analysis." "I am ready." He stopped walking and turned to face her. "You know, when I first recruited you, I thought you would be good, but I never imagined this. You have become something remarkable, Laura." She thought about the bar on Nexus Station, the moment when Eth's fist had come down and she had made the choice to fight. Everything since then had been consequences. "I just did what needed to be done," she said. "That is all any of us can do." They walked out into the sunlight of an alien world. Ships filled the sky, carrying people and cargo between the stars. Somewhere out there, new threats were forming. New enemies were making plans. New innocents were in danger. And humanity would be ready. Laura looked up at the endless sky and allowed herself a small smile. Her old life was over. Her new life was just beginning. Whatever came next, she would face it the same way she had faced everything else. One mission at a time,